introducing Randy. Randy's been Patagonia's Director of Quality for 18 years. And I just like to pause on this statement. I mean, Patagonia is known around the world as one of the great quality companies anywhere. And Randy has run their quality program for a long time. So he's really credible. So why is he here at a CSR conference? I think he's a lesson for how you get CSR work done inside a big company or a medium-sized company. I went to Patagonia many years ago. I worked there for 3 years and then went and worked in the Clinton administration for 3 years and then went back to Patagonia. And the second time I came back, I was in charge of environmental strategies. And, big portfolio, responsible for all the green stuff in the company, had a lot of experience outside, a lot of credibility outside, but I did not know how the company made its products. I didn't have a lot of internal credibility. And Randy did. More than almost anybody else in the company, he knew how the product was made, what the customers wanted, how the company made its money, how to bring things through the company at the right pace. And I think it's really helpful to understand that the work of CSR doesn't have to be owned by the CSR group, doesn't have to be done by the person who has that authority. I had the authority, Randy had the power. And so if we hadn't worked together, I would have been a miserable failure. But we did work together, and now I brag about all the work that I did at Patagonia. But it's actually, for me, it's a really important and helpful lesson that we got to find the most credible people in the company and share the work with them. And that's how the work really grows and it becomes great. So a lesson at the outset, find the right house for this stuff. And then the other thing about Randy is I just think he's a respectful, polite, wonderful colleague. He is the most transparent business colleague I've had. We just put stuff on the table, and it really is how you make a great quality product. You can't make great quality products without putting stuff on the table and saying, we blew it. How do we fix this scene? I mean, this is a problem. Let's actually just talk about how we make this better. So a lot of the lessons that he brought from the quality movement and put into the company's environmental program, I think really helped us grow and blossom. So I'm going to turn it over to Randy for the Patagonia story, mostly the Patagonia context, some about organic cotton and some other fibers. And then we'll have a good 45 minutes at least for questions. So, Randy, thanks.
Wow, thanks, Kevin. Ooh, I'm in the wrong slide already. I don't want to miss the opportunity to thank Kevin for his work at Patagonia. Patagonia, as we'll talk about as we go through this short presentation, has cared mostly about wilderness preservation. And it's because it's the sports we do. We love outdoor sports that kind of test our wits and cause us to reflect a little bit. And what Yvon likes to call, our owner of the company's name is Yvon Chenard, and he likes to call anybody decent in the outdoors a real dirt bag. And that's our customer. So we call respectfully our customers dirt bags. And but we concentrated mostly on wilderness preservation. And Kevin, in his tenure at Patagonia, really forced us to begin realizing the impacts of our own activities and to turn our whole environmental initiatives into a true corporate social responsibility initiative, and we thank him for that. It was very important. I'll go through a little history as quickly as I can. I'm realizing I have to sit because if I stand, I'll block views. So I'm not used to speaking and sitting at the same time. But this is a little shed out behind the company, which still exists. It is a blacksmith shop. The guy with the S on his chest is the owner of our company, Yvon Chenard. The company is still owned wholly by Yvon and his wife, Melinda. 50-50, no 49-51 or anything like that. They balance each other very, very well. But the company literally has grown into all the buildings that were existing around this shed in 1957. He moved there because there's a good surf break about 300 yards away, and they could pound out climbing gear during the day and go surfing whenever the surf was good. And indeed, Yvon has just introduced a new book called Let My People Go Surfing, because to him, he still wants that. This is what they built. Basically, the first company was Chenard Equipment, and basically they would hand forge pitons, which were these little spikes that you drive into the rock to protect yourself when you're rock climbing. You go a certain distance, hammer in one of these pitons, hook a carabiner, and you rope through it so you'd only fall twice the distance since the last time you put in a piece of protection. This was revolutionary in climbing at the time, very high tech. But in about 1971, this is Yvonne climbing on a route called the Nose on El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. He had done a climb a year before, and when he repeated the climb a year later, he had found that his pitons that he was selling were beginning to damage all the rocks on this route, because you pound them in, and then because they're expensive for a climber, I think they were $2 or something like that, you pound them up and down and take them out, and you literally widen the crack. And that allows water in and ice in, and these flakes that we see here expand and fall off, and the route literally changes. And it really alarmed him. And within a few months, he had decided to not sell these pitons anymore. It was our first environmental decision based purely on wilderness preservation. And he switched to the entire line from pitons to these chalk stones. We called them hexcentrics, these little devices that you literally had to find a crack that you would fit. So you'd carry a whole rack of them and stick them into rocks. And then later when you came up, you could take them off, and they had absolutely no harm on the rock. This turned also into an essay in our first catalog that we were put out in 1972. And it was on clean climbing, and it was a simple essay titled A Word. And a little bit timid, because your first catalog, you're trying to tell all the climbers that you're selling stuff to not to do things the way they've been doing them. And it's a rather bold way to introduce yourself into a marketplace. But it worked. We were very popular for taking that stance. And I would say this pattern has repeated itself many times. And what I'll do is go through a lot of these patterns as quickly as I can, just to give us fodder to talk about during question and answer. But every time the company has done what it feels like is the right thing to do, it's been good for our company. And to some degree, we've begun to trust that. It's not always based on numbers. What that turned into, though, and in that essay, you will find language that basically is still included in our current mission statement. The first two phrases here, make the best product and cause no unnecessary harm, were in that essay. And they became, over time, our mission statement. And recently, we've added and use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis, using crisis as a dramatic word because we really believe it is. And it was a shock to many of the employees in the company to call this the environmental crisis. They thought that was a little strong. I wish we had a stronger word. By 1976 or so, the clothing company Patagonia had emerged out of the climbing company. Chenard Equipment and two companies now existed. And this company was founded on trying to make the best possible product that we could possibly make. So Patagonia built its reputation for a good 15, 18 years on product quality. And we really didn't know that much about the impacts of our product, didn't really think about it that much, but we knew we didn't like making product that didn't last, and that if you made a throwaway product, it was somehow offensive to us. And so we were always trying to make a product that would be durable and long-lasting, and that's our reputation to this day. It's what my job tries to make sure happens. By 1984, however, that guilt over not really dealing with the impacts of our own activities turned into an environmental grants program or a tithing program. And since 1984 to 2005, we've given away, I think, about $22 million to about 6,000 different small environmental organizations. And you can even see, if you can read some of this, these grants are relatively small and focused. There are now 4 people at Patagonia whose job it is to review all the applications for money, and they're targeted only to projects that have a specific outcome in mind, and that money only goes for that specific project. It doesn't go to large organizations that determine later how it's going to work. So it's a relatively small amount of money. We're a relatively small company, but it has a lot of impact because of the way we pay attention to how it's focused. Some other projects that turned into a big deal. Capeline, I don't know if some of you know our line, but actually the largest product line that we sell is synthetic underwear called Capeline. It replaced cotton and wool underwear. It was very successful and was one of the things that launched the outdoor industry, basically, is synthetic underwear. And we used to package it like everyone else. It was actually started in boxes before 1978, and then it moved into these plastic bags on the left here. with a card inside, front and back. That was a lot of waste, and so we decided in 1988 to convert to a totally post-consumer recycled paper bag. It's a great idea, and we went for it. They lasted about 2 weeks in the retail environment before they were totally shredded. And so we were in the business of printing and replacing these packaging constantly for a whole year. And in 1989, we finally just decided to do away with packaging altogether in this product. So right now, all we do is roll the product up into what we call a sushi roll that has a hang tag on the outside of it with 2 rubber bands. That's it. All of our dealers that we work with, Patagonia works primarily through specialty retailers worldwide, hated this idea. They thought that sales would plummet, and they did not. They increased because people actually could feel and touch the product that they were buying. It was a good thing. It ended up being good for the company. In 1978, these packages cost about 50 cents a piece. 88, it went down to about a quarter. This current packaging costs 6 cents per unit, and it's good financially as well. In 1991, partly at Kevin's prompting, when he came to the company, we did a life cycle analysis. This is the first time we ever looked at our product itself. And most of our product is made out of 4 things: polyester, nylon, cotton, and wool fiber. And we looked at the entire life cycle from extraction or growth of the raw material all the way through to its disposal or potential recycling capability. And it was surprising to us. What we expected to find was that we wanted to do more natural fibers, and what we found was that really the lowest impact products were our synthetic fibers, even counting all the extraction and transportation issues. They lasted a long time. They were relatively efficient to produce. This was kind of a shock to our design group, who was already beginning to lean on natural fibers more. Cotton ended up being the worst thing that we work on, and indeed we actually, in our life cycle analysis, I'm not sure how accurate it really was, but we discovered that there was about 3 times the petroleum in a cotton shirt as in a polyester shirt. By the time you count all of the farming resources, fuels, petrol, all of the petrochemicals that go into the pesticide production and into the herbicide production and into dyeing and finishing, there's a lot of petroleum in a cotton product. So we were quite surprised at this, and this started some things happening in the company. A couple years later, 2 years later, we had worked with a company called Wellman in Massachusetts to take what was the start of a bottle collection system that was going into park benches and parking lot bumper stops and speed bumps and things like that, and talk them into really refining the process and sorting the bottles more carefully and taking the caps off and things like that, and melt extruding a polyester fiber out of it. And we have since then done as much as we possibly can in our product line using these fibers. They're limited because they have to be short staple fibers, and I'll get into that a little bit longer, but we figure we've kept about 50 million 2-liter bottles out of landfill since we started this in 1993. Certainly not a solution to any crisis, but it helps. In 95, we opened up our Reno distribution center. It's right along the banks of the beautiful Truckee River and just outside Reno, Nevada. It is a real state-of-the-art center. It's highly efficient. It has massive concrete flooring. I think it's either 6 to 8 feet thick, has a heat sink. The place is constant temperature all the time, regardless of how hot or cool it is outside. All the lighting in it is all on the roof. You see all those sunlights. Those are actually sunlight tracking mirrors that track the sun as it goes across the sky and reflects it where it's needed into the warehouse. Any heating that we need really isn't for product. It's for the people in the warehouse. We don't really need to heat the product. So we tried to figure a different way to do it, and there are motion sensors on radiant heaters all throughout the warehouse, and they are only on when there's someone standing under them, and when you walk away, they go off. It's pretty cool. So we're not heating the whole space or anything. We're just trying to keep the workers comfortable. We've won a lot of rewards for this. The whole front of this building is now covered with solar panels, as we have a retail store inside that's totally powered by solar. In 96, we made the big leap to convert all of our cotton to organic cotton. We did not get into dyeing issues immediately and growth issues with water usage. We've made a commitment to convert completely to organic cotton. That has been a long-term process. Very, very difficult to do, and we can talk about that in question and answer. But everything in our company that's cotton, I don't care if it's a 1% in a draw cord in a garment, if it has cotton in it, it's organic cotton. A very, very all-encompassing process that involved every single person that we work with throughout the world. In '97, we built our most recent building. This is called the Firehouse. It's an exact 3 times scale model of a firehouse that used to stand there in the 30s. And it is a completely recycled building. Everything in it, from the stucco on the outside to the shingles on the roof to the wood and the steel inside, is completely recycled. It's highly efficient, and we've won a lot of awards for it. This has become a standard for the company. Once you do this, you can't build another building that isn't that good. And it's a real test. I encourage you to do things like this. It's one building, but it set a standard for the company. Now, anytime you build a retail store or something like that, everyone will point toward the Firehouse building and go, but what about this? And you have to do it. It gives you discipline to have accomplished something in a small way initially. In '98, we, through several different contracts with California utilities, committed to wind power for all of our offices and stores and basically all of our facilities in the state of California where we can do it. And those contracts are still in place. What was unique about it is that we demanded to actually see the additional windmills that were made or put in place to match our needs. And as we grow, we continue that process of having to offset our use with windmills power. So the entire organization is basically on wind power now. In '98, we started a process of allowing employees to get involved in any of the 6,000 organizations that we've worked with. They don't have to be pre-approved by the company. All you have to do is say, I want to work for one of them, figure out how to get 3 months out of your schedule, and off you go, fully paid to do that work. And a lot of employees have taken advantage of this, and it's been really good for the organizations that we support. Those stories come back into the company and really energize the employees as well. Little things. This is the surf break that I mentioned to you directly off of our offices called Rincon. And I'm just using a nice image because our catalog is full of nice images, and they have to be replicated very carefully in order to have this impact. And in 2001, we had converted to a post-consumer recycled paper for our catalog, and when it went to the presses, it did not print very well. And we had to move the entire thing to a much more expensive printing process, or can go back to the virgin content that we were originally using. And it was a $250,000 decision just to print one catalog. And after much debate inside the company, we moved it and kept the post-consumer paper. These are little things that happen all the way through the life of the company, and hopefully it spurs questions at the end here. This was taken just 4 days ago now. This only a month ago we commissioned or turned on our solar arrays in our Ventura campus. So all the parking lots at the campus are completely covered with solar arrays. It's a really nice effect. Your car is very shaded now. It cranks out about 66 kilowatts of power. It's 1/3 of our usage in our campus. Really, really cool. In 2006, we will introduce the thing that I most am proud of right now, and hopefully something that spurs a lot of questions. But we're starting a common threads recycling program for an absolutely new process. This is already in manufacture, so this is not a pie-in-the-sky idea. We are taking our entire Capilene line initially, our largest product line, about 2 million units, and it will be all made out of post-consumer recycled polyester. It is antimony-free, so we've also changed the catalyst that makes the polyester, because it usually has antimony in it as a trigger in the reaction that causes the polyester molecule to form. So it is now antimony-free as well. And this process is the first really completely recyclable process where it takes the polyester all the way back down to its virgin components so that you can repolymerize the polyester, turn it back into virgin fiber, and make anything you want with it. I mentioned that we used pop bottles before, but that process was very limited. We can make very few fiber types out of it. Very few products can actually use that material. This can be used on any polyester product in the market, and it's a huge innovation for us. We will collect garments back, we will chop them up, and put them directly back into making more products for our customers. The initial product that we are making and introducing is actually made from collected garments already, so it's a really interesting process. Huge thing. And we get to play with great ads. We had a lot of shirts at our trade show saying, "Change your underwear for good." That got a lot of attention. And when we do this, Kevin mentioned I'm the quality director. When we do all these things, I'm basically trying to make sure that all of it isn't compromising the product in any way. And in that process, I'm intimately involved in how they get done. And this one, in many ways, is a better product than where we started. And I hope we get a chance to talk about that a little bit more. In almost every case that we've done an environmental innovation, the outcoming product is better than where we started, because we have to know so much more about the process than we did before that we can't just design a garment and have somebody else make it. We have to actually know whether enough seed has been planted for the year in order to do the organic. We have to know that there's enough recycled product going into this factory in order to get enough fiber out. Have to have a lot of knowledge about the process, and it makes better products. We're more intimate with them. Probably the holy grail when Kevin was there was this idea of that our most embarrassing products were our most popular ones, our alpine shells, because they were really highly complex garments. Bill McDonough, does anybody know? He's got a great saying. It says if you take two things, like if you take organic cotton and recycled polyester, both are really great ideas. If you combine them, you've created something you can't get apart, and so it's called a monstrous hybrid, he calls it. And you've basically ruined that idea. So any effort to make a recycled content alpine shell and then laminating a different plastic on the inside of that and then using all kinds of buckles and parts, you're basically building a piece of hard goods, kind of like an electronic TV almost, that you're never going to get apart, and it's on a one-way trip to a landfill. So this has always been something we've been working on. In 2005, we actually introduced the first products from the recycling process that I'm telling you about. It's a completely recycled content technical alpine shell, and even the polyester laminate, or the laminate inside that makes that jacket waterproof and breathable, is recycled polyester. And it can be recycled as well. Even the adhesives inside are polyester. So this was deemed impossible. And we've begun to trust that when you put yourself in this situation and say, you know what, we have the tools to do it, let's just do it. And almost invariably it engages everyone in a way that you don't get when you're just working on a regular product. So the supply chain, everybody gets involved in trying to figure out how to make this product as good as it was before, because Patagonia's reputation can't be on the hook because we're doing an environmental innovation. And indeed, this product is the most breathable, the most waterproof, flexible, comfortable shell we've ever made. It is the superior product, and it's completely recyclable, so we're very happy with it. But all in all, we're an image company, and what our customers relate to are the fact that we make products that relate to their core use in the outdoors. And so I like to cover a few image and have some fun. This is how customers really think of us. They really, that dirt bag image is really what we really are. All the environmental work we do is sort of penance. That's how we look at it. We're very pessimistic about these things. What we really like to do is get out and do fun sports and talk to our customers who do those same things. If you ever wore, any of you mountain climbers at all? If you've worn plastic boots, they've gotten more comfortable in recent years, thank God, but for years, this is how your feet looked at the end of the day because they didn't breathe at all. And so playing with the term soul of the sport was really great. Climb doesn't pay. This is great. Dropped off and schooled was the title of this ad. And these are Patagonia ads. There are no words other than what you see. And we've done this for 30 years. This is dropping off of an ice climb is quite an experience if you've never. In this case, the rope is into rock, so that's pretty good. But sometimes it's into a piece of ice, and you hope it holds. Points of view, just a nice, catchy phrase. My favorite ad, acts of faith. This is actually somebody hanging on to that little nub of ice on that rock. There is a rope that coming out of the word core diagonally, you can see a fine rope there. So they are rope, but it's a long way since the last piece of protection. So our customers really like these images. It relates to what they want to do. It really is who we are. All the other stuff we do, we're just trying to do this right to the best of our ability. We've made a lot of mistakes along the way. We continue to make them, but we tend to find our way pretty quickly. We love sports that are kind of on the edge and make you reflect. We can't really stand making a product knowingly that's a mediocre product. I think that's part of our culture. We do it, and our customers tell us about it because we have this lifetime satisfaction guarantee, but we don't knowingly do it. We just don't have it in us anymore. And we've learned that really the pinnacle isn't where we're trying to get. The journey and how we do the work is more important. It's actually an ethic that comes out of climbing. Most climbers really aren't fixated on hitting peaks. They love it when they attain them, but it's really the experience of being out there and doing it in a really clean way. That pretty much is how Patagonia operates or tries to. 2 minutes. I got the 2-minute warning.
You got it 2 minutes ago.
Then I'll finish.
Good.
Because. Thanks.
Thank you. So we have 40 minutes, and I think we should just go where you want to go. So we'll take questions or comments, and I may stand up. Tell us if it doesn't work on the mics. So why don't we, in the back?
How would you project that the company would be different if it was publicly held? And the second part of that question is, does Patagonia do anything to sort of influence the whole industry to move in this direction? It's sort of a competitive advantage for you in some sense. So how much effort is being put into sort of getting other companies to act in a responsible way as well?
What was the first question again?
How would the company be different if it was publicly held?
It would be horrible. I really think that's one of the biggest questions that we get all the time, and the phone rings every week with that question. I think it's extremely difficult if you're focused on quarterly earnings to do what we do. Yvonne's book, Let My People Go Surfing, was really going to be titled The Next 100 Years. It was an essay he had written a couple of years ago, and that's really what he wanted the title to be, because he believed that Patagonia should be operated in a way that it still exists in a healthy way 100 years from now. And that's not the kind of thinking you get thinking quarter to quarter. We're responsible. We've learned the hard way. In 1991, we had a financial crisis and had to lay off a lot of employees. It really hurt, and it taught us we have to be very fiscally responsible, and we have been ever since, because no one ever wants to go through it again. So I wouldn't say we're careless about our quarterly profits, but we will do things like put in a $2 million solar array that will pay off in 10 years, and feel that that's a good investment. And a lot of companies have a hard time making that decision. How do we help? Well, we're members, I think we are now anyway, of BSR. We've been off and on, and participate at length. The Organic Exchange was something we helped found. I think there are so many ways that Patagonia tries to push this. The organic cotton thing, for instance, has been something we've basically participated with every single competitor in the apparel industry to try and convince them. We hauled busloads of people out to conventionally grown and then organically grown fields And those are mainly people we've solicited from competitors in the outdoor industry and also from government organizations to try and convince them of the validity of organic cotton. There's a selfish element to that. The healthier organic cotton industry is, the healthier we are. But primarily, we want to really see people move in this way. By the way, if you go onto our website and look, if you don't know much about conventional cotton, it's a really nasty business, and it will convert you overnight more than anything else I know of. I don't know what else. Many different ways. The recycled polyester initiative that we had was a new technology. We were able to have a 3.5 year exclusive on that, and we waived it at its introduction and are strongly encouraging our competitors to participate. We launched it in a press conference to our competitors, asking them please to sign up, and had all the information there to give them. That's the way we like to work.
I would just add one really quick thing, which is that more often than not, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, you'll see more companies reaching out and realizing this is not our problem. It'd be so much easier if the whole industry could do it. So you have Patagonia, Nike, Gap, a bunch of companies talking more often and not competing as often on some of these issues. And when people think about stakeholder engagement, they usually think about NGOs and other organizations. It actually means just as much calling companies in your industry and saying, can we just do this together? So, you.
Some questions.
Let's do, from now on, one question, because a lot of people have questions, and we'll keep our answers shorter, so more people. So, sorry, I'm a thug, but that's I want people here to participate.
Could you speak a little bit more towards the recycling of the polyester, because it is a new process? What was Patagonia's involvement in that process? And you're saying that there's you had a 3-year
Exclusive?
Yeah. Contract on that material. Could you talk as to how that came about?
Well, it's been a holy grail for us. It's been something, polyester recycling of pop bottles has always been a bit embarrassing to us, to be honest. It's really still on its way to a landfill. The garments that were made were just making a long detour. Hopefully the product lasts 15, 20 years, but we knew it wasn't coming back and it was going to a landfill. It never felt like a real solution. And it was essentially a slow form of downcycling. And we want to constantly try and figure out, we had our hands around organic initiatives for natural fibers, and we're doing the same thing with wool and hemp, for instance, as we do with organic cotton. But the synthetics, which we need in our industry, were an embarrassment. So we had to figure out this cycle. We want to keep it in a very, very high cycle where it can be reused at its original value over and over again. Not a new idea by any means, just very difficult to do. And we found a company called Taisian Fibers in Japan, who's expecting your calls. And I can, anybody who wants to find out more, we really are serious about trying to get as much of this converted as possible because it's a rather large factory. It can handle a lot. They had built internally their own recycling center that didn't take care of dyes or wouldn't take care of impurities like zippers and plastic snaps and things like that. And basically worked with them for about 6 years on figuring out how to deal with those impurities and also converting it from an antimony catalyst to a titanium dioxide catalyst so that we could get rid of the heavy metals out of the process. And once that was accomplished, it was actually very straightforward. It is a regular polyester production facility that's just using, instead of oil as its resource, it uses garments. It's pretty amazing.
You pick some. Go ahead.
Just a follow-on question regarding that. How do you do your reverse distribution to get the garments back to the factory?
It's the biggest problem, and currently, in the life cycle analysis, it actually works quite well simply because of world economics at the moment. This plant is in Japan. We have to get all these garments. We do a lot of business in Japan, by the way. About half of Patagonia's sales are in Japan. So much of the recycling is Japanese product right now. But getting garments from the United States over to Japan is actually very easy because there's huge ships full of empty containers heading that way. So it costs us nothing to get it back in. The only trouble we've had is getting these used garments into Japan. Japan has a law against bringing trash into their country, so we had to get it classified as a raw material. So, it's very easy.
Can you talk about your organic cotton suppliers?
Uh-huh.
I imagine that at first it's really hard to find just any supply of organic cotton. And can you talk about sort of what that market looks like, how you build relationships with them, and the challenges there?
It's a huge task. I don't think we could do it. Maybe Kevin could speak about organic exchange. We couldn't do it without organic exchange now. When we started, we had one supplier, and we had 3 fibers, and the entire line had to be recreated to fit within that constraint. And then it stayed at about 6 fiber choices for many years until there was enough business to warrant it. We also, one little thing real quick, is we changed products as a result. We designed products around those limitations, and they used to feel like limitations, and now they feel very liberating. We know the fibers really well, and we know what we can do with them, and we create more product and better product with fewer inputs than we did before. That's a key lesson. You don't have to feel like you have to get every supplier converted. You can change the way you do things as well. That's a part, but maybe you could talk about
Well, what's happened with I think a process started when Patagonia had these tours in the Central Valley for their own employees, and then brought other company members on those tours. You have 200 people going to conventional farms, organic farms, and just talking about it for a day. And then those relationships begin to change and evolve over time. So you had a series of companies meeting with people up and down the cotton supply chain, spinners, weavers, retailers, banks, farmers, NGOs, and just having conversations about how do we make this more predictable? How do we know that you're actually going to be using this cotton 3 years from now? How do we know what seeds to buy, when to buy them? So then what happened was, as more companies got in, and now there's many dozens of companies like Nike, if Nike said, let's convert our men's T-shirt line, they would buy up all the organic cotton in the world. It'd be gone. And that doesn't help anybody. So all of these companies have said, let's play team sports to be respectful, but to make the work easier. So the organic exchange is this business-to-business operation that says, well, what cotton do you need, and where in the world do you need it, and when do you need it? And then what yarn do you need, and where and when do you need it? And what fabric do you need? Where in the world, when in the world do you need it, what quality? And so you can go to their website. It's actually a really interesting website. Most of it isn't password protected. You can look at these pull-down menus that show who's producing what in different parts of the world. So it allows then for companies to batch their orders a little bit more efficiently. For organic cotton, there might be a mill that is, a huge investment. It's running 24 hours a day, much of the year. And when they run organic cotton, they have to shut it down and clean it. They run a small batch and then bring in the conventional stuff. 2 weeks later, if they do that again, they have to shut it down, clean it. That's inefficient. And so if you have many companies coordinating, they shut it down once and run organic cotton for 2 weeks straight. And so then you start to get cost efficiencies, which is why the cost comes way down.
It's actually almost neck and neck at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when it's slightly higher, but it's almost exactly the same price.
So it is that cooperative effort.
But that's not what I'm hearing.
What's that?
I'm worked from Gap, and I actually hear that it's not.
It depends on, getting back to the issue I raised earlier, whether or not you're willing to work within certain fiber types. And yes, it's not that you can go out and buy every fiber you can get conventionally and do it organically. It can be extremely expensive to do that. So there are some limits to what your choices are. I would say it's maybe, you're going to probably correct me, but I think there's a 10%, yeah.
10-15%.
But
Yeah.
you know what? We can
and a lot
take.
of that might be from the certification. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you look at how you design a fabric and a garment, you can get 10% yarn out of a garment really easily. And that's how we have to work. There are one of my favorite shirts we ever made, and it's one of the most popular ones. It was called an AC shirt, air conditioning shirt, very comfortable. Would not exist. It's made out of an extremely expensive organic Swiss yarn, and we just would never think of making a shirt like that. But it was the only way we could reduce the actual ounces of cotton in the product, was to get the quality of the yarn up and make it thin and very lightweight, so that it had almost no cotton in the product, And it turned out to be a very, very popular, long-wearing product. We wouldn't have gone there if we hadn't had the limitations. Sometimes these things are empowering.
You mentioned the concept of monstrous hybrid, and one of the current drivers of organic cotton is the blends, the 5% blending through, especially with Nike and
Right.
Levi Strauss. How do you see that, versus your 100% organic cottons?
Not all of our products are 100% organic cotton. We make monstrous hybrids.
Okay.
And
Do you see that as potential dilution, or do you see?
I hate that term. I hated what I just said. It was terrible. Yeah, it's.
Do you see a progression for Patagonia towards 100% as is that, I guess, a cost limitation?
It's not a cost. It's a what your customers expect in performance from your product. So if you are making cotton lycra garments, very popular in women's wear, and you're making a product that has no stretch and recovery, but it's cotton, they want a little lycra in it. And it may only be 1 or 2%, but it makes it extremely difficult to recycle at that point.
But is the cotton in your products 100%?
Yes, absolutely.
Like the blending of organic cotton, like the 5% blended, it's 5% organic and 95% conventional.
Right.
Which is primarily probably the bulk of the use.
Patagonia has nothing but a heartfelt respect for the companies that do this. It's really good for us. They're trying to build an organic infrastructure that would allow them to use organic cotton at a higher content where they can actually talk to their customers about it and get some benefit. Right now, there's very little benefit for the companies doing that, other than to build a future. That's a very long-term view. If any of these companies wanted to increase like Nike wanted to increase its content 1% or 2%, they would wipe out Patagonia's resource, and we would not be able to do it. So a lot of cooperation, a lot of respect for them.
It is also, there's just a lesson for Patagonia. Things get easier to market when it's a 0 or 100. So when Patagonia had a few organic cotton T-shirts, it's hard to really let loose and tell that story if most of your cotton is conventional. Or even in a wholesale environment now where at an REI where Patagonia has organic cotton T-shirts, they're on a shelf with conventionally grown cotton T-shirts. So it is hard to tell that story. So I think the challenge is much greater for the larger companies that have a small amount of organic cotton to tell that story. Now, once Patagonia said 100% of our cotton will be organic, and if we can't make and sell organic cotton sportswear successfully, we'll never make sportswear again, then it's kind of a powerful statement, and people remember that part. Then the marketing gets easy.
So how do you grow the organic cotton supply for everybody? Because you have a bottleneck right there.
Actually, it's expanding fairly nicely. This concept, and actually due to organic exchange for the most part, there is a growing market. All farmers want to know is there's a market for it, that they can go ahead and invest in it, and there's a steady return from it. Banks end up being a big problem for farmers because they want a guaranteed return on a certain investment, and organic was a bit risky, and banks have become more flexible in that regard, mainly because the market is well established and visible. So it is growing.
You seem to, your company is targeted around a certain type of consumer, which has a great appreciation for these ideals, and so you're targeting this psychographic, and you're able to charge a premium for high performance products and also ones that have a good fit with their ideals. What about other companies that don't have this type of consumer that want to move in that direction, but the premium won't necessarily be rewarded for making these efforts? What recommendations would you have for them to make similar steps, but maybe not get the same?
I think the best way that I can answer that is because quality is my profession. Is if you look at the quality movement of the 60s and 70s and 80s. And when you bought a Japanese car in the early 70s, it was considered much higher quality than anything you could get in the United States. It was a bit of a premium at the time, actually, to buy it. When I was a kid, if I bought an electronic radio and it lasted a few months without breaking, I was pretty satisfied with it. Today, if you buy a small, cheap $5 electronic component and it breaks a year from now, you're very upset about it. Your expectations have completely changed. So the quality movement has become generic. It has become the ticket to entry. The environmental initiatives that we take have to go the same way, and they will inevitably. So I don't believe that this barrier of cost and positioning is real. I think you can, and in all of our experience, almost every one of the things that we do, there's been a benefit to doing it, even in cost. And I know that's hard to believe, but I would not say that raw material costs are where Patagonia's prices come from.
The other element is if you're saying, will customers pay this extra benefit premium at the point of sale? And sometimes I think it's useful not to think of these things in terms of anything at the point of sale, even assuming that there wasn't a premium. If you could get the cotton at the exact same price and the price didn't change, at the point of sale, I'm not sure you always want to talk about the environmental attributes. Gap has a really simple, clear, pure image. You have a sense of what it is. There's not a lot of words in a Gap store because it's a sense of the company. So would Gap help sales of organic products if they had lots of words describing why you should buy this stuff and why you should feel guilty shopping elsewhere? That doesn't always work there. So sometimes it's useful to think of these things as helping the brand in the long term. Can we use this to add luster generally and not necessarily with this specific product at the point of sale? And then one thing we toyed with a little bit at Patagonia, and I had not seen a company really pursue it. I've always been interested in finding a company that could reinforce sales after the fact. So if organic cotton at the counter, if somebody's bought it, you just slip a little card in and they see you do it. It says, thanks, you're supporting organic farmers. Here's a picture of Roger Sanderson from the Central Valley. He's making a go and you're helping. Or to have the customer service reps know that when somebody brings one of these flannel shirts up, you're supposed to say, oh, right on, that's organic. Did you know? And then for a web-based company to 2 weeks later get a letter that says, thanks for buying organic. It's really cool. Here's what we've done. And then 6 months later, maybe a survey that says, because as we all know from politics, surveys aren't actually always about getting information. Sometimes they're pushing information. You could say, we're hearing from a lot of customers that the organic cotton has a softer hand. We'd like to know, we think you bought it for environmental reasons, but we'd like to ask you about the quality. What do you think? So with these things, I've now changed that person's mind over 6 months about why they bought the product in the first place. If they now think that they bought it for environmental reasons, then I think if you can change somebody's mind, you've got them for life as a customer or as a voter. And so I think in this sense, if you've changed a customer's mind about that product, I think they're more likely to come back. And I think it'd be a very easy experiment for a web-based company, for web-based sales, to be able to say, let's have a control group. We'll reinforce the sales here. And a year later, see if they give us greater customer loyalty. And,
I would just took another comment. It may work very well for your customer. I mean, I use you guys in all of our benchmarks, but there's very little that we can really apply to a $16 billion company that our consumers, at least in the U.S., really aren't willing to pay the difference. And I know we're out of time. I actually think we're at a tipping point. I think the customers will. I think that, to your earlier point, this isn't a competitive advantage that we have over another company. We all are collaborating, and quite honestly, that's why you see the 5% blends, because back to the mill, the efficiency. The mills, we need to keep them in business. We need to let them make a profit.
It's a really good point. One of the more depressing facts that we face in annual surveys is that most of our customers do not care about our environmental work.
It's the problem.
It's a very small group of customers, maybe 10, 15% even mention it as a factor for purchase.
But the brand has luster.
But the brand has
so
luster.
in that sense, that's where. Let's go over there.
What percentage of your inputs are sourced from emerging economies? For example, Mongolia or Bolivia?
None.
Cotton from the cotton is grown in some emerging economies.
Not yet. I mean, most of our cotton is still coming from. We get a lot from Turkey, so I guess I don't think of it as an emerging economy. A lot of it's still California and Texas and North Carolina cotton. We've looked elsewhere and not found reliable supplies. There's a little bit in Peru that we use. That's about it.
growing cotton in the California Central Valley, isn't that an ecological nonsense because of water supply and stuff?
You know, this is one of the hottest topics in the company, of course, is whether or not, if you are talking only about organic growing practices, whether or not you're really dealing with all of the environmental issues associated with that raw material. Of course you're not. And so expanding beyond organic standards into water use and land use issues is something we're just now beginning to get our hands around. And we have to do it with dye stuffs. We have to do it with all of our fibers. We do quite a bit with hemp. Right now there's a big push in the market for wool, and wool is a hornet's nest of issues about land use that are probably overshadow cotton, and so we've been concentrating on wool right now. But you're right. We have to do it in tiers. Like if you were to say to yourself, I'm not going to do organic cotton unless I can do organic cotton with absolutely sustainable growing practices beyond organic standards. I'm only going to use natural dyes, which ends up being a real environmental problem that we found out. But if you put too many barriers, you will not get it done. So a tiered approach is what we're doing, and trying to be very clear about each step along the way.
And I recall just introducing the organic cotton, just knowing people expect color from Patagonia. We're going to do organic cotton, and it's going to be, the dyes won't be perfect.
Kind of along those lines, I mean, you started out as a very functional kind of company for rock climbing, and now obviously there are a lot of consumers who buy it for brand and kind of for fashion too. So I'm just wondering, how do you struggle between, creating a fashion product that might not be, worn for the next 20 years like some of the older products that we're making?
Well, we have a design philosophy in the company that is about 40 pages long that covers that, answers to that. It's a long topic, but basically we define quality in 9 different ways, and we try and encompass beauty and environmental work as part of our definition of quality. It's not just about long-term durability. But those are kind of higher tier portions. So indeed, if we make a pair of pants and it's just for fashion, I have to review every style myself for one, and there's several people that do it. Some people do it with an environmental eye, some with a cost eye, quality eye. If it's got a pocket on it or something and it's going to wear off or it just doesn't need to be there, it's just pure fashion, we won't do it. And there's a lot of fighting about that. We call it creative tension. But we try and stick to it. It's still for real. Yeah, sportswear can be fun. People wear clothing. It is functional. It better be solving a problem or we shouldn't make it. We call it borrowing brand equity when we don't do that.
I'm curious, you talked about someone looking at it with a creative eye, an operational eye, and a quality eye. And how do some of the innovations that you showed us in your slideshow come about? Are that some you mentioned were tops down, the rock issue with it hurting
right.
But how is Patagonia structured internally such that some of these ideas are heard and the people are able to manage the day-to-day business and yet also think outside the box?
Well, we're fortunate that our roots, it really is fortunate, our roots in equipment manufacture still affect who we are today. Somehow embedded in the company are kind of industrial engineering methods. And so when you make climbing gear and stuff like that, you're detailing things, you're understanding metals, you really dive into the content of your product. That extends into our clothing. And so we've had a long tradition of materials development inside the company. We're very fortunate about that. And we have a lot of highly skilled textile engineers in the company. And they stay abreast of almost everything that's happening technology-wise. And invariably, all we're doing is seeing the movement of some idea and then pairing companies together in a way they don't realize that they can get something done, and that moves us forward. That, in general, just plain excites everyone else who's not involved. I mean, when we come up with this polyester, the biggest problem that we had was every single designer in the company wanted to overnight convert every single thing we do to it, and we can't. It's too much, so we have to figure out how to do it. Any innovation inside the company is just embraced so fast. There's just no resistance. It's always a factor of tempering the speed with which we get things done. It's not a great answer, but it's true. I have to move on.
How's
Patagonia been influenced by the changes in the garment industry right now, particularly with the increased global supply chain management in China and Southeast Asia? Has that influenced or changed the way that Patagonia does its business, thinks about its business?
Yes and no. I mean, we've always worked with a policy of keeping our manufacturing as close to the fabric manufacturer as possible. And it's still pretty much true today. So wherever is the best place to get a raw material made is where we end up trying to sew it. So we manufacture in 80 countries around the world. And they're generally a specific product type being done there because of the specialty in fabrics. We're fortunate, again, we're not a low-cost company, and so we're not generally working with emerging factories and the like. We're kind of third tier. When people have a fairly modern infrastructure in their country is when Patagonia can work there because there's enough skill and quality to purchase the fabric or to do the work there. So I think this is a big issue for the apparel industry in general. We're just real fortunate in that regard. Yeah.
I had a question regarding your journey to full environmental sustainability. What do you think the next big steps are for Patagonia in terms of reaching this?
Wow. It's really funny, and I'm glad you asked, because to us this polyester thing has been on the horizon for so long that now that we're doing it and it's just a lot of work, that question's coming up inside. What's the next big thing? And I'm not sure. Patagonia always has at its fingertips the ability to be a very large company. We're a small owner, just a few owners. We're not publicly owned. And Patagonia could sell itself and become very big very quickly. Our biggest challenge is to remain relevant in our industry, successful, not be overpowered by the competitors and just disappear, and stay true to our roots. I think being able to have a fairly modest growth in an ethical way is Patagonia's biggest challenge.
If I to push back a little bit on Patagonia, I do think this keeping the polyester up high and recycling that, I've always seen that as the holy grail, because the idea would be you want to have a shirt that's completely organic, and when you're done with it, you put it in the compost bin and you grow tomatoes with it next year. Or you want to have a jacket that when you wear it for 20 years, then you bring it back and it becomes a new jacket. So just that, waste equals food, that idea. So if Patagonia can focus on that, and I see the company's niche as being experimental, introducing products and making them legitimate so that other companies can kind of get in. I think the task for a company like Gap or Nike, the bigger companies, I think it's a lot more complicated. And they're making more progress on what's our total climate impact. How do we really measure and assess or change the shipment of fabrics around the world and the shipment of products around the world? And how do we really get a handle on just the total footprint of a company this size? So I think Patagonia wrestles with those things, but their most visible work and most important work is in this product innovation. For Gap and other companies, I think they're looking at systems, global systems, and how does in an industrial economy, how do all of us reduce our impact? So I don't mean to let either side off the hook, but I think there's a big part of environmentalism that Patagonia is not doing. And then there's a big, but that stuff is being covered elsewhere in the industry. So I like it's like an ecosystem where there's roles that are really clear. If Patagonia could work on this and roll this out, and I think of it like Ford and Toyota with hybrids. If Ford had rolled out hybrids first, nobody would believe the technology would work, and so nobody would own it. So Toyota did it first, and now we trust the technology, and now everybody does it. If Patagonia could keep doing that, innovating with product, getting the quality right, and then letting it spread, that's enough. But there is, to be honest, there's a lot of stuff that they're not doing, and I think it's just important to say it, to know that. We have time for one more question because we need to leave two more questions if their answers are short. So I'll be quiet. You.
Okay, I wanted to hear about the hemp that you use and the other using hemp and the advantages of hemp or disadvantages of hemp versus organic cotton. and how your company deals with that?
Hemp's a lot like rayon in that it's basically cellulose fiber. So it's you will actually hear of hemp being treated like rayon, being basically melted with solvents and turned into really nice fabric. But most raw hemp, which is what we use, is very woody and scratchy. And the problem is just getting a good quality without having a lot of chemical processes involved. So we try and, there's no hemp certification system for organic yet. So we have to go and investigate it ourselves. And it is essentially an organic process. It's using something called dew-retting. You let it lay on the ground a year until you can pound the fiber out of it. We don't use chemical treatment of hemp. So we're pretty satisfied with it. There's no pesticides that are used in it because it's just a weed. It grows quite readily. And it's a really great fiber. We mix it in small quantities with organic cotton, and it creates a very durable product. By itself, though, there's not a lot of good response to it. Like if we make a hemp shirt or something like that, it's fairly scratchy. And people expect the comfort of cotton, especially because organic cotton is so soft and comfortable that they've begun to really expect that comfort level from it.